Captain Thomas Hartwell had served the British Royal Guard for 23 years, and, in all that time, he had never seen anything quite like what lay before him. The morning of September 15th, 2023, started like any other at Windsor Castle. The autumn mist clung to the ancient stone walls as Thomas made his routine inspection of the castle's lesser-known chambers and storage areas. The castle held secrets in every corner, rooms that hadn't been properly explored in decades. Thomas had always been thorough in his duties, perhaps more so than his predecessors. His colleagues often joked that he treated every dusty corner like it might hide state secrets. On this particular morning, that attention to detail would prove prophetic. The maintenance request had come through the previous evening. A leak in the East Wing's foundation had been reported, requiring inspection of several basement storage areas that rarely saw visitors. Thomas descended the narrow stone staircase, his flashlight cutting through the darkness that seemed to swallow the weak overhead bulbs. The air grew colder with each step, carrying the musty scent of centuries-old stone and forgotten time. The basement stretched further than most people realized, a maze of corridors and chambers that had been built and rebuilt over the castle's long history. Some rooms dated back to the original Norman construction, while others had been added during various renovations and expansions. Thomas moved methodically through each area, checking for signs of water damage and structural issues. It was in the third chamber, tucked behind what appeared to be a false wall, that Thomas noticed something unusual. The stone here looked different, newer somehow, though still ancient by modern standards. He ran his hand along the wall, feeling for irregularities. His fingers found a slight depression in one of the stones, barely noticeable unless someone was looking for it. Curiosity overcoming protocol, Thomas pressed against the stone. Nothing happened at first, but then he felt it give slightly under pressure. He pushed harder, and, with a grinding sound that echoed through the chamber, a section of the wall swung inward, revealing a hidden passage. Thomas stood frozen for a moment, his training warring with his amazement. He had discovered secret passages before, but never one quite like this. The passage was narrow, barely wide enough for one person, and disappeared into darkness beyond the reach of his flashlight. The air that emerged from the opening was stale, but dry, suggesting the space had been sealed for a very long time. Following proper protocol, Thomas should have immediately reported his discovery and waited for a full archaeological team to investigate. But something about the passage called to him. Perhaps it was his years of service, his deep connection to the castle's history, or simply human curiosity. But Thomas found himself stepping into the hidden corridor. The passage extended for about 30 feet before opening into a circular chamber. Thomas's flashlight illuminated stone walls covered in intricate carvings, some bearing the royal coat of arms, others displaying symbols and text that appeared to be much older. The craftsmanship was extraordinary, clearly the work of master artisans from a bygone era. But it was what sat in the center of the chamber that took Thomas's breath away. On a simple stone pedestal stood an ornate chest, its dark wood gleaming despite what must have been centuries of isolation. The chest was bound with bands of tarnished silver and secured with an elaborate lock that bore the distinctive royal seal. Thomas approached the chest with reverence, his mind racing with possibilities. The royal seal on the lock was ancient, dating from a period when such items were crafted with painstaking detail. The silver bands showed intricate engravings, some depicting crowns and scepters, others showing what appeared to be coronation ceremonies. The weight of discovery pressed down on Thomas as he realized the significance of what he had found. This wasn't just another forgotten storage room or abandoned chamber. This was clearly a hiding place, somewhere important enough to warrant secret construction and careful concealment. The question was, what had someone felt was so valuable, so precious, that it needed to be hidden away in such an elaborate manner? Thomas circled the chest, examining it from every angle. The craftsmanship suggested it dated from the late medieval period, possibly during the reign of one of the Plantagenet kings. The style of the silver work and the particular form of the royal seal pointed to a time when the monarchy faced significant challenges, when treasures might indeed need to be hidden for safekeeping. As Thomas studied the chamber more carefully, he noticed additional details that strengthened his growing conviction that this discovery was extraordinary. The walls bore inscriptions in Latin, partially obscured by age, but still legible to someone with Thomas's education in royal history. The phrases he could make out seemed to reference the crown of legitimacy and hidden until the time of restoration. The floor of the chamber showed evidence of careful planning in its construction. The stones were fitted with precision that suggested this wasn't a hastily constructed hiding place, but rather a permanent vault designed to protect whatever lay within for extended periods. Thomas estimated that sealing and concealing such a chamber would have required significant resources and planning, the kind only available to the highest levels of the royal household. Thomas knew he was standing at a crossroads. Protocol demanded that he secure the area and report his findings immediately. But he also understood that once he made that call, this moment of private discovery would be lost forever. The chamber would fill with experts, officials, and media attention. This quiet space would never again know the peace it had maintained for centuries. Standing in the dim light of his flashlight, surrounded by centuries of history, Thomas made his decision. He would examine the chest more closely before reporting his discovery. If his growing suspicions were correct, if this vault truly contained what he was beginning to believe it did, then this moment deserved proper respect and careful consideration. The lock on the chest was indeed ancient, but Thomas could see that it had been designed to be opened by someone with the proper knowledge. The mechanism wasn't meant to keep out casual intruders, but rather to ensure that only someone with royal authority could access the contents. As a senior member of the Royal Guard, Thomas possessed keys and knowledge that dated back to his predecessor's duties and responsibilities. Among the historical keys in Thomas's possession was one that had always puzzled him. It had been passed down through generations of guard captains, its purpose seemingly forgotten. The key was ornate, bearing the same royal seal that appeared on the chest lock. As Thomas withdrew it from his keyring, his hands trembled slightly with anticipation. The key fitted the lock perfectly. The mechanism turned smoothly despite its age, suggesting that whoever had designed this vault had intended for it to be accessed again. The lock clicked open with a sound that seemed to echo not just through the chamber, but through history itself. Thomas lifted the heavy lid of the chest slowly, his heart pounding with anticipation. The interior was lined with rich velvet, now faded with age, but still maintaining its regal appearance. Nestled within the protective fabric lay an object that confirmed Thomas's wildest hopes and fears. The crown of Saint Edward, or what appeared to be an identical match to England's most sacred coronation crown, rested within the chest. The golden circlet was adorned with precious stones that caught and reflected Thomas's flashlight beam, sending sparkles of color dancing across the chamber walls. The cross-patee that topped the crown gleamed with an inner fire that spoke to centuries of royal tradition and sacred ceremony. Thomas stared at the crown, his mind struggling to process the implications of his discovery. The official crown of St. Edward was safely housed in the Tower of London, where it had resided for decades. Yet here, hidden in a secret vault beneath Windsor Castle, lay what appeared to be an identical crown, crafted with the same attention to detail and adorned with gems of similar quality and arrangement. As Thomas examined the crown more closely, he noticed subtle differences that suggested this wasn't simply a copy or replica. The arrangement of stones, while similar to the official crown, showed variations that spoke to a different period of creation or modification. Some of the engravings on the golden band contained text that Thomas couldn't immediately decipher, script that appeared older than anything he had seen on the official regalia. The discovery raised questions that shook the foundations of Thomas's understanding of royal history. How could there be two crowns of such similar design and apparent authenticity? Why had this crown been hidden away in such secrecy? What events in England's tumultuous past had necessitated the concealment of what appeared to be one of the monarchy's most sacred artifacts? Thomas realized that his discovery went far beyond finding a valuable historical artifact. He had potentially uncovered evidence of events that could reshape understanding of English royal history. The existence of this hidden crown suggested intrigue, deception, or crisis at the highest levels of the monarchy. The careful construction of the vault and the elaborate security measures indicated that powerful people had been involved in whatever circumstances led to the crown's concealment. As Thomas stood in the chamber, holding his flashlight over the open chest, he understood that his life had just changed irrevocably. This discovery would thrust him into the center of historical investigations, media attention, and political scrutiny. The quiet dignity of his service as a royal guard would be replaced by the intense spotlight that accompanies discoveries of such magnitude. But beyond the personal implications, Thomas felt the weight of historical responsibility. This crown, whatever its true origins and significance, represented a piece of England's heritage that had been lost to time. His discovery offered an opportunity to restore missing chapters of royal history and perhaps answer questions that historians had puzzled over for centuries. The chamber seemed to hold its breath as Thomas made his final decision. He carefully closed the chest, securing it once again with the ancient lock. The crown would remain safe for a few more hours while he considered the best way to handle his discovery. This wasn't just about following protocol anymore. It was about ensuring that such a significant historical finding received the careful, respectful treatment it deserved. Thomas took detailed photographs of the chamber, the chest, and its contents, understanding that documentation would be crucial for the investigations that would surely follow. He made careful notes about the location, the condition of everything he had found, and the sequence of events that had led to his discovery. This information would be invaluable to the historians and experts who would soon descend upon Windsor Castle. As Thomas prepared to leave the chamber, sealing it behind him, he took one last look at the space that had guarded its secrets for so long. The ancient stones seemed to whisper stories of the past, tales of kings and queens, of political upheaval and royal intrigue. Soon, this quiet chamber would tell its story to the world. The walk back through the basement corridors felt different now. Thomas was no longer just a royal guard completing a routine inspection. He was a man carrying one of the most significant historical discoveries of the modern era. With each step toward the surface, toward the moment when he would make his report, Thomas felt the weight of history settling on his shoulders. The morning mist was lifting as Thomas emerged from the castle's depths, but the clarity of daylight only emphasized the magnitude of what he had discovered below. The familiar surroundings of Windsor Castle looked the same, yet everything had changed. Hidden beneath the stones and earth lay secrets that could rewrite history books and challenge everything people thought they knew about England's royal heritage. Thomas knew that his next phone call would set in motion events that would captivate the world. The discovery of the hidden vault and its mysterious crown would become one of the most significant archaeological and historical findings of the century. But for now, in these final moments before the discovery became public knowledge, Thomas savored the quiet magnitude of what he had found, understanding that he had been privileged to witness history emerging from the shadows of the past. The phone call that changed everything came at precisely 10:47 a.m. on September 15th, 2023. Dr. Margaret Pemberton, chief curator of the Royal Collection, was reviewing acquisition proposals in her office overlooking the Thames when her assistant interrupted with urgent news. Captain Thomas Hartwell of the Royal Guard needed to speak with her immediately regarding what he described as an extraordinary discovery at Windsor Castle. Within 30 minutes, Dr. Pemberton was speeding toward Windsor in an official vehicle, her mind racing with possibilities. In her 20-year career managing the Royal Collection, she had handled numerous discoveries and acquisitions, but something in Captain Hartwell's carefully measured tone suggested this was different. The Royal Guard didn't make calls about routine findings, and Hartwell's reputation for thoroughness and discretion made his claim of an extraordinary discovery all the more compelling. Dr. Pemberton arrived at Windsor Castle to find unusual activity already underway. Security had been quietly increased, and she noticed several unmarked vehicles in the courtyard that suggested other officials had already been contacted. Captain Hartwell met her at the entrance, his professional demeanor unable to completely mask an underlying excitement that confirmed the significance of whatever he had found. The descent into the castle's basement felt like a journey back through time. Dr. Pemberton had explored many of Windsor's hidden areas, but she had never ventured into this particular section of the foundation. The narrow corridors and ancient stonework spoke to periods of the castle's history that predated most existing records. As they approached the concealed passage, Dr. Pemberton felt the familiar thrill that accompanied major historical discoveries. When Captain Hartwell revealed the hidden entrance and led her into the secret chamber, Dr. Pemberton's professional composure momentarily cracked. The circular room with its carved walls and central pedestal represented exactly the kind of discovery that historians dream about, but rarely encounter. The craftsmanship evident in every detail suggested this chamber had been created with royal authorization and unlimited resources. But it was the open chest and its contents that left Dr. Pemberton speechless. As someone who had spent years studying the royal regalia, she immediately recognized the significance of what lay before her. The crown in the chest bore unmistakable similarities to the crown of Saint Edward, yet subtle differences suggested a separate origin and purpose. The quality of the gemstones, the precision of the gold work, and the overall design indicated this was no mere replica or ceremonial piece. Dr. Pemberton's initial examination revealed details that deepened the mystery. The crown showed signs of use, with slight wear patterns that suggested it had been worn during actual ceremonies. Some of the stones showed microscopic chips and scratches consistent with a crown that had served active duty rather than remaining a display piece. Most intriguingly, several of the gems appeared to be varieties that had been particularly prized during specific historical periods, offering potential clues about when the crown had been created. The inscriptions around the crown's base proved particularly fascinating. Dr. Pemberton's expertise in medieval Latin allowed her to translate phrases that referred to divine appointment and rightful succession. The text suggested this crown had been created not just as royal regalia, but as a statement of legitimate authority. The implications were staggering, particularly given the crown's careful concealment. Within hours of Dr. Pemberton's initial assessment, Windsor Castle became the center of intense but carefully controlled activity. Teams of experts from various disciplines began arriving. Historians, archaeologists, metallurgists, gemologists, and specialists in medieval artifacts. The investigation that followed would prove to be one of the most comprehensive examinations of a royal artifact in modern times. Professor William Blackwood, the nation's leading expert on medieval royal regalia, arrived from Oxford with equipment sophisticated enough to analyze every aspect of the crown without causing damage. His initial assessment confirmed Dr. Pemberton's observations while raising additional questions. The crown's construction techniques matched those used during the late 13th and early 14th centuries, a period of significant political upheaval in English royal history. The gemological examination proved particularly revealing. Several of the crown's stones showed characteristics that matched gems known to have been in royal possession during the reign of Edward I and his successors. Most significantly, one large ruby displayed internal markings that matched descriptions of a stone that had mysteriously disappeared from royal records during the early 14th century, around the time of Edward II troubled reign. Carbon dating of organic materials found in the chest's lining supported the late medieval timeline suggested by other evidence. Wood samples and fabric remnants indicated the chest had been sealed sometime between 1300 and 1350, a period marked by political crisis, military campaigns, and questions about royal succession that could have motivated the concealment of important regalia. Historical research teams began combing through medieval records, looking for references to missing crowns, secret ceremonies, or unusual security measures that might explain the vault's existence. Dr. Emily Richardson, a specialist in 14th-century royal documents, discovered intriguing references in previously overlooked manuscripts. Several documents from Edward II's reign mentioned concerns about the security of royal regalia during periods of civil unrest. One particularly significant document, found in the Bodleian Library's collection, referenced instructions for the protection of sacred implements of kingship during times of uncertainty. The language was deliberately vague, but the timing matched the estimated period when the crown had been concealed. More tellingly, the document bore the seal of Hugh le Despencer, Edward II's controversial favorite, whose influence over the king had contributed to political instability. Architectural analysis of the hidden chamber provided additional clues about the crown's concealment. Experts determined that the chamber's construction required significant planning and resources, suggesting royal authorization for its creation. The precision of the stonework and the sophisticated concealment mechanism indicated the involvement of master craftsmen who would have been available only to the highest levels of medieval society. The discovery triggered intense debate among historians about the crown's origin and purpose. Some experts argued that the crown represented backup regalia created during periods of political instability, when the official crown of St. Edward might have been at risk. Others suggested it could be evidence of a parallel coronation or competing claim to the throne, hidden away when political circumstances made such claims dangerous. Dr. Sarah Whitfield, a specialist in medieval political history, proposed a particularly intriguing theory. Her research into the turbulent final years of Edward II's reign revealed evidence of secret negotiations and alternative succession plans. The hidden crown, she suggested, might have been created for a coronation that never took place, concealed when political circumstances shifted, and made such plans impossible. The investigation expanded to include examination of the chamber's walls and their inscriptions. Advanced imaging techniques revealed additional text that had been obscured by centuries of accumulated dust and moisture. Some inscriptions appeared to reference specific dates and events, though the deliberately cryptic language made interpretation challenging. One phrase, roughly translated as "for the restoration of rightful rule," suggested the crown's concealment was intended to be temporary. Metallurgical analysis provided insights into the crown's construction and origins. The gold showed characteristics consistent with metal available in medieval England, while trace elements suggested some components might have been imported from continental sources. The craftsmanship matched techniques used by London goldsmiths of the early 14th century, pointing to creation within the established royal workshops. Perhaps most significantly, comparison with the official crown of St. Edward revealed both similarities and crucial differences. While both crowns shared basic design elements and proportions, variations in specific details suggested they had been created at different times or for different purposes. The hidden crown showed design elements that predated some features of the official crown, raising questions about which represented the original design. Public announcement of the discovery was carefully managed to balance legitimate historical interest with respect for the ongoing investigation. Initial reports focused on the archaeological significance of finding such a well-preserved medieval chamber, with details about the crown's discovery released gradually as analysis progressed. Media attention was intense, but controlled, with access limited to ensure the integrity of the investigation. International experts began arriving to participate in the analysis. Dr. François Dubois from the Sorbonne brought expertise in medieval French royal regalia, offering comparative insights that proved valuable in understanding the hidden crown's design influences. Dr. Maria Gonzalez from the University of Salamanca contributed knowledge of Iberian royal traditions that helped contextualize some of the crown's more unusual features. The investigation's scope expanded as researchers realized the crown's discovery might solve other historical mysteries. Several medieval artifacts in various European collections showed design elements similar to those found on the hidden crown, suggesting connections that had previously gone unrecognized. The discovery offered potential insights into medieval royal workshops, trade networks, and political relationships. Laboratory analysis revealed traces of organic materials on the crown that provided additional historical context. Microscopic examination detected residues consistent with holy oils used in medieval coronation ceremonies, suggesting the crown had indeed been used for its intended purpose rather than remaining purely ceremonial. This evidence supported theories that the crown represented functional regalia rather than a mere symbol or backup piece. The chamber's construction also yielded valuable historical information. Archaeological examination revealed that the space had been modified several times over the centuries, with evidence of periodic maintenance and security improvements. This suggested that knowledge of the vault's existence had been maintained by successive generations, even if the specific purpose had been forgotten or deliberately obscured. Document analysis expanded beyond English sources as researchers sought international perspectives on the discovery. Papal records from the early 14th century contained references to concerns about English royal succession and the sanctity of coronation regalia. While not directly mentioning the hidden crown, these documents provided context for the political and religious tensions that might have motivated its concealment. The investigation began to reveal a complex picture of medieval royal politics and the extraordinary measures taken to protect royal authority during times of crisis. The hidden crown represented more than just a beautiful artifact. It offered insights into the fears, hopes, and strategies of medieval rulers facing unprecedented challenges to their authority. As weeks of intensive investigation continued, the hidden crown began to tell its story. Each analysis revealed new details about its creation, use, and concealment, painting a picture of medieval royal life that was far more complex and precarious than most people realized. The discovery was transforming understanding of a critical period in English history, offering new perspectives on events that had shaped the monarchy for centuries. The implications of the discovery extended beyond academic circles. Questions about the crown's legal status, its relationship to existing royal regalia, and its potential role in modern ceremonial functions required careful consideration by constitutional experts and royal officials. The hidden crown represented not just a piece of history, but a potentially active element in the ongoing story of the British monarchy. Dr. Pemberton found herself at the center of what was becoming one of the most significant historical investigations of the 21st century. Each day brought new discoveries and revelations that deepened appreciation for the complexity of medieval royal life and the extraordinary circumstances that had led to the crown's centuries-long concealment. The investigation was far from over, but already it was clear that Captain Hartwell's discovery would reshape understanding of English royal history for generations to come. 3 weeks into the investigation, Dr. Emily Richardson made the breakthrough that would transform the entire understanding of the hidden crown's significance. Working late in the British Library's manuscript collection, she discovered a document that had been misfiled for over a century, hidden among routine administrative records from Edward II's reign. The parchment, written in the careful Latin script of a royal clerk, contained revelations that would shake the foundations of accepted royal history. The document, dated 1326, detailed emergency plans for protecting royal regalia during the Civil War that would ultimately lead to Edward II's deposition. But, more significantly, it revealed the existence of what the scribe called the true crown of Saint Edward, distinguished from the crown which is displayed for common knowledge. The implications were staggering. The official crown of Saint Edward, housed in the Tower of London and used for centuries of coronations, might not be the original sacred crown at all. Dr. Richardson's hands trembled as she photographed each page of the manuscript, understanding that she was documenting evidence that would rewrite textbooks and challenge fundamental assumptions about English royal traditions. The document described how Queen Isabella, Edward II's estranged wife, had ordered the creation of a substitute crown while secretly protecting the original. The timing matched perfectly with the estimated date of the hidden crown's concealment. The manuscript revealed a conspiracy of extraordinary scope and sophistication. According to the royal clerk's account, Queen Isabella and her supporters had recognized that Edward II's crown was becoming a symbol of failed kingship and civil discord. Rather than risk damage to the sacred original during the political chaos, they had commissioned master craftsmen to create an identical replacement while hiding the true crown until more stable times returned to the realm. Dr. Richardson immediately contacted Dr. Pemberton with her discovery, and within hours, an emergency meeting was convened at Windsor Castle. The assembled experts read the medieval document with growing amazement, recognizing that they were not just examining an archaeological discovery, but potentially the most sacred artifact in English royal history. The crown that had been hidden beneath Windsor Castle for 7 centuries might be the actual crown used to consecrate English monarchs since the time of Saint Edward the Confessor. The revelation prompted an immediate reassessment of every piece of evidence that had been gathered. Details that had seemed curious or unusual suddenly made perfect sense. The crown's signs of ceremonial use, the quality of its construction, and the elaborate security measures for its concealment all supported the theory that this was indeed the original crown of Saint Edward, hidden during one of the most tumultuous periods in English history. Further research into Queen Isabella's actions during 1326 revealed additional supporting evidence. Financial records showed payments to goldsmiths and jewelers for special work in service of the realm, with amounts that matched the cost of creating elaborate royal regalia. More tellingly, records showed unusual activity at Windsor Castle during the same period, including construction projects that were never fully documented in official accounts. The political context of 1326 provided compelling motivation for such an elaborate deception. Edward II's reign was collapsing under the weight of military failures, economic crisis, and baronial rebellion. Queen Isabella, recently returned from France with an invasion force, understood that controlling the symbols of royal authority would be crucial to establishing her son's claim to the throne. Protecting the true crown while allowing public ceremonies to continue with a substitute represented political strategy of remarkable sophistication. Professor Blackwood's team began re-examining the official crown of Saint Edward in light of these revelations. Advanced analysis revealed details that had been overlooked or misinterpreted in previous studies. While still a magnificent artifact, the Tower of London crown showed construction techniques that were slightly more advanced than those used on the hidden crown, suggesting it had been created later, possibly as the replacement referenced in Queen Isabella's documents. The gemological evidence proved particularly compelling. Several stones in the hidden crown matched medieval descriptions of gems that had supposedly been lost or replaced over the centuries. One massive sapphire bore internal characteristics that matched detailed accounts of the Great Sapphire of Saint Edward, mentioned in medieval inventories but absent from the official crown. The hidden crown appeared to retain original elements that had been removed or replaced in the Tower of London version. Dr. Whitfield's historical research uncovered additional evidence supporting the substitution theory. Chronicles from the period following Edward II's deposition mention subtle changes in royal ceremonies and regalia, described by contemporary observers as necessary improvements or restorations. These accounts, previously interpreted as routine maintenance, now appear to document the introduction of replacement regalia. The investigation expanded to include examination of other royal artifacts that might have been affected by Queen Isabella's secret preservation efforts. Researchers discovered evidence suggesting that several pieces of medieval royal regalia had been similarly duplicated and hidden, creating a secret royal treasury that had remained concealed for centuries. The scope of the medieval conspiracy was far greater than anyone had initially imagined. International experts were consulted to verify the findings and provide comparative analysis with other European royal regalia. Dr. Du Bois confirmed that similar preservation strategies had been employed by other medieval monarchies during periods of crisis. The practice of creating substitute regalia while protecting originals was apparently more common than previously recognized, suggesting that Queen Isabella's actions represented established royal contingency planning rather than unprecedented innovation. Religious authorities were consulted regarding the theological implications of the discovery. The crown of Saint Edward carried special sacred significance, having been blessed for use in coronation ceremonies that were considered religiously essential to legitimate royal authority. If the hidden crown was indeed the original, questions arose about the validity of coronations performed with the substitute crown, though theological experts generally agreed that sacred intent mattered more than the specific physical object. The revelation attracted attention from constitutional scholars who recognized the potential implications for modern royal ceremonies. While the discovery was primarily of historical interest, questions were raised about whether future coronations should incorporate the original crown if its authenticity could be definitively established. Such decisions would require careful consideration by royal officials and constitutional experts. Media attention intensified as news of the manuscript discovery spread. The possibility that the nation's most sacred royal artifact had been hidden for centuries captured public imagination in ways that purely archaeological discoveries rarely achieved. The story combined elements of medieval intrigue, royal conspiracy, and religious mystery that resonated with people far beyond academic circles. Captain Hartwell found himself thrust into an even brighter spotlight as the significance of his discovery became clear. His careful attention to duty and methodical exploration of forgotten areas had potentially uncovered the most important royal artifact in English history. The Royal Guard's role in protecting royal treasures took on new meaning when the treasures in question might include items that had been secretly protected for 7 centuries. Advanced scientific analysis continued to support the authenticity claims. Radiocarbon dating of organic materials confirmed the early 14th century timeframe, while metallurgical analysis showed construction techniques consistent with the highest levels of medieval craftsmanship. Most convincingly, analysis of where patterns on the crown's interior showed evidence consistent with ceremonial use over an extended period, suggesting it had served as functional regalia rather than remaining a static display piece. The chamber's architectural features were re-examined in light of the new revelations. What had initially appeared to be simply elaborate security measures now looked like a carefully planned preservation system designed to protect irreplaceable artifacts for centuries. The chamber's construction showed evidence of consultation with experts in preservation techniques, suggesting that Queen Isabella's conspiracy had included consideration of long-term storage requirements. Document authentication experts confirmed the genuineness of Dr. Richardson's manuscript discovery. Analysis of the parchment, ink, and writing style all supported attribution to Edward II Royal Chancery during the specified time period. The document's language and terminology matched other authentic record from Queen Isabella's administration, strengthening confidence in its reliability as historical evidence. The investigation began uncovering additional manuscripts that had been overlooked or misinterpreted by previous scholars. References to special protections for sacred implements appeared in various documents from the period, suggesting that the crown's concealment was part of a broader program of preserving royal artifacts during political crisis. The medieval royal administration had apparently planned for the possibility of long-term political instability with remarkable foresight. Genealogical research revealed that knowledge of the hidden vault might have been passed down through specific families with connections to Queen Isabella's inner circle. Several prominent families showed evidence of maintaining unusual traditions or possessing artifacts that could be connected to the medieval concealment conspiracy. This suggested that some awareness of the vault's existence had survived, even if specific details have been lost over time. The discovery prompted re-examination of other historical mysteries that might be explained by similar medieval preservation strategies. Several missing royal artifacts from various periods could potentially be located in similar hidden vaults if Queen Isabella's approach had been adopted by later monarchs facing comparable crises. The possibility of additional discoveries energized historians and archaeologists throughout Britain. Legal experts began considering the complex questions surrounding ownership and custody of the hidden crown. While clearly belonging to the royal patrimony, the crown's legal status was complicated by its centuries of concealment and the circumstances of its creation. Determining proper procedures for its care and potential ceremonial use required consultation with constitutional authorities and legal scholars. The revelation transformed public understanding of medieval royal politics and the sophistication of royal contingency planning. Queen Isabella's actions demonstrated political acumen and strategic thinking that challenged traditional portrayals of medieval monarchs as reactive rather than proactive. The discovery suggested that medieval royal administration was more sophisticated and forward-thinking than previously recognized. As evidence mounted supporting the authenticity of the hidden crown and the accuracy of the medieval manuscripts, experts began to realize they were witnessing one of the most significant historical discoveries of the modern era. The careful preservation of England's most sacred royal artifact through 7 centuries of political change and social transformation represented an unprecedented success in long-term cultural preservation. Dr. Pemberton coordinated efforts to develop proper conservation and display plans for the crown while research continued. The artifact required specialized care to ensure its preservation for future generations, while public interest demanded appropriate opportunities for viewing and education. Balancing conservation requirements with public access presented challenges that would require innovative solutions. The hidden crown was beginning to tell its complete story, revealing not just medieval craftsmanship and royal intrigue, but also evidence of remarkable foresight and dedication to preserving cultural heritage. Queen Isabella's conspiracy had succeeded beyond her wildest dreams, protecting England's most sacred crown through centuries of change and ensuring its survival from modern discovery. The revelation was reshaping understanding of medieval politics, royal traditions, and the extraordinary measures taken to preserve the symbols of legitimate authority during times of unprecedented crisis. 6 months after Captain Thomas Hartwell's remarkable discovery, Windsor Castle had become the epicenter of a transformation that extended far beyond the walls of the ancient fortress. The revelation that the hidden crown was likely the original crown of St. Edward had triggered waves of change that rippled through academic institutions, royal establishments, and public consciousness around the world. What began as a routine maintenance inspection had evolved into a redefinition of English royal history and heritage. The definitive authentication of the crown came through a convergence of evidence that left even the most skeptical experts convinced of its authenticity. The final piece of proof arrived when researchers discovered sealed chambers within the medieval royal workshops at Westminster, containing detailed records of the crown's creation and subsequent duplication. These documents, preserved in lead-lined containers that had protected them from centuries of decay, provided exact specifications and measurements that matched the hidden crown perfectly. Dr. Margaret Pemberton stood before the assembled International Commission of Experts as they prepared to deliver their final verdict on the crown's authenticity. Representatives from universities across Europe, specialists in medieval artifacts, and officials from the world's most prestigious museums had spent months examining every aspect of the discovery. Their unanimous conclusion would reshape understanding of one of the most significant periods in English royal history. The Commission's report, released on a crisp March morning in 2024, confirmed what many had come to believe. The crown discovered beneath Windsor Castle was indeed the original crown of Saint Edward, hidden by Queen Isabella during the political crisis of 1326 and preserved through 7 centuries of concealment. The substitute crown that had been used for coronations since the 14th century, while historically significant in its own right, was revealed to be exactly what Queen Isabella had intended it to be, a magnificent but temporary replacement. The implications of this authentication extended far beyond academic circles. Constitutional experts began examining questions about the legitimacy of coronations performed with the substitute crown, though most concluded that the sacred nature of the ceremony transcended the specific physical objects used. The intention and religious significance of coronation were deemed more important than which particular crown had been employed. King Charles III, who had been closely following the investigation, made the historic decision to incorporate the original crown into future royal ceremonies. In a carefully worded statement released through Buckingham Palace, His Majesty announced that the recovered crown would be restored to its rightful place in royal traditions, while maintaining respect for the centuries of history associated with the substitute crown. The decision reflected a balance between historical accuracy and recognition of established traditions. The restoration process for the original crown required months of careful work by the world's leading conservation experts. Centuries of concealment had preserved the artifact remarkably well, but proper preparation for ceremonial use demanded meticulous attention to every detail. Master craftsmen worked alongside historians to ensure that any restoration work respected the crown's medieval origins while meeting modern safety and ceremonial requirements. Captain Hartwell found his life permanently changed by his discovery. Initially uncomfortable with the attention his find had generated, he gradually came to appreciate the historical significance of his role in recovering England's lost heritage. The Royal Guard honored him with a special commendation for his dedication to duty and attention to detail, qualities that had made the discovery possible. His methodical approach to routine inspections was established as the new standard for castle security procedures. Dr. Emily Richardson's manuscript discovery earned her recognition as one of the leading medieval historians of her generation. Her careful research had provided the key evidence needed to understand the crown's true significance and the circumstances of its concealment. Universities around the world competed to recruit her expertise, though she chose to remain in England to continue researching the medieval preservation conspiracy that had saved the crown. The hidden chamber beneath Windsor Castle was transformed into a specialized museum space, where visitors could experience the site of the discovery. Advanced conservation techniques were employed to preserve the chamber's medieval character while providing safe access for educational purposes. The space became a pilgrimage site for historians, royal enthusiasts, and anyone interested in the intersection of history and mystery. International recognition of the discovery elevated Britain's profile in the global historical and archaeological communities. The successful preservation and recovery of such a significant artifact demonstrated the value of maintaining detailed historical records and the importance of thorough archaeological investigation. Museums and historical institutions worldwide began reviewing their own collections and storage areas, hoping to uncover similar treasures that might have been overlooked or misidentified. The economic impact of the discovery proved substantial as well. Tourism to Windsor Castle increased dramatically as visitors sought to see the chamber where the crown had been hidden and learn about Queen Isabella's remarkable preservation conspiracy. The story captured public imagination in ways that traditional royal history rarely achieved, combining elements of mystery, political intrigue, and successful long-term planning that resonated across cultural boundaries. Educational institutions incorporated the discovery into curricula ranging from medieval history to conservation science. The Crown story provided compelling case studies in political strategy, cultural preservation, and the importance of maintaining detailed records. Students from elementary schools to graduate programs found lessons relevant to their studies in Queen Isabella's foresight and the modern investigation that had uncovered her success. The revelation prompted re-examination of royal regalia and treasures in other European monarchies. Several countries launched investigations into their own historical collections, seeking artifacts that might have similar stories of concealment and preservation. The discovery demonstrated that medieval royal administrations had been more sophisticated in their contingency planning than previously recognized, leading to new research into crisis management strategies employed by historical rulers. Scientific advances resulting from the investigation benefited conservation efforts worldwide. Techniques developed for analyzing the crown without causing damage were shared with institutions globally, improving capabilities for examining other historical artifacts. The multidisciplinary approach that had been essential to authenticating the crown became a model for future investigations of questionable artifacts. The legal framework established for handling the crown's discovery created precedents for future archaeological finds on royal properties. Clear procedures were developed for authentication, conservation, and public access that balanced historical significance with practical considerations. These guidelines would prove valuable for managing future discoveries that might emerge from Britain's numerous royal residences and their extensive, often unexplored basement areas. Queen Isabella's posthumous reputation underwent significant rehabilitation as scholars gained new appreciation for her political acumen and dedication to preserving royal heritage. Previously portrayed primarily as Edward II's estranged wife and the mother of Edward III, she was increasingly recognized as a skilled political operator who had successfully implemented one of history's most successful long-term preservation strategies. Her actions had ensured the survival of England's most sacred royal artifact through centuries of political upheaval and social change. The collaboration between institutions that had made the authentication possible continued long after the initial investigation concluded. Relationships formed between museums, universities, and royal establishments during the investigation evolved into ongoing partnerships that benefited historical research broadly. The discovery had demonstrated the value of international cooperation in examining artifacts of global significance. Advanced technology played a crucial role throughout the investigation, and the techniques developed for examining the crown continued to evolve. Digital imaging capabilities allowed for the creation of precise virtual models that could be studied without risk to the original artifact. These technological innovations found applications in examining other historical treasures and in training conservation specialists. Public engagement with royal history increased significantly following the discovery and authentication. The story of the hidden crown provided an accessible entry point for people interested in learning about medieval politics, royal traditions, and conservation science. Educational programs developed around the discovery attracted diverse audiences and sparked renewed interest in British historical heritage. The original crown of St. Edward was formally restored to ceremonial use in a private ceremony attended by senior royals and the key figures who had made its recovery possible. Captain Hartwell, Dr. Pemberton, Dr. Richardson, and Professor Blackwood were among the guests who witnessed the crown's return to its intended purpose after 7 centuries of concealment. The moment represented not just the conclusion of an investigation, but the successful completion of Queen Isabella's preservation plan. Planning began for the crown's use in future state ceremonies, with protocols developed to ensure its proper handling and security. The crown's return to active ceremonial use required coordination between multiple royal households and security agencies, reflecting the artifact's significance and the public interest in its story. Every aspect of its ceremonial employment was carefully planned to honor both its ancient origins and its remarkable journey through history. The discovery's impact on archaeological methodology was substantial and lasting. The systematic approach used to investigate the hidden chamber and authenticate its contents became a standard for examining similar finds. Universities began offering specialized courses in royal archaeology that incorporated lessons learned from the Windsor Castle discovery. Dr. Pemberton reflected on the investigation's broader significance as she prepared the final documentation of the crown's authentication and restoration. The discovery had demonstrated the value of maintaining detailed historical records, the importance of thorough archaeological investigation, and the remarkable success that could result from careful long-term planning. Queen Isabella's conspiracy had succeeded beyond anything she could have imagined, preserving not just a crown, but an entire chapter of English heritage. The story of the hidden crown became a symbol of successful heritage preservation and the rewards of patience and careful planning. Museums and cultural institutions worldwide cited the discovery as evidence of the importance of maintaining comprehensive records and the value of investigating seemingly routine storage areas. The crown's 7th-century journey from concealment to rediscovery inspired renewed commitment to preserving cultural heritage for future generations. As the first anniversary of the discovery approached, plans were made for exhibitions and educational programs that would share the crown's story with broader audiences. The hidden crown had become more than just a recovered artifact. It represented the success of medieval crisis management, the importance of dedicated public service, and the continuing relevance of historical investigation in understanding the present. Captain Hartwell, now promoted to head of historical security for the Royal Guard, continued his methodical inspections of royal properties with renewed appreciation for the potential significance of forgotten spaces. His discovery had proven that history could emerge from the most unexpected places, and his example inspired a new generation of guards and administrators to approach their duties with enhanced attention to historical possibilities. The crown that had been hidden beneath Windsor Castle for 7 centuries had finally completed its journey. From Queen Isabella's desperate attempt to preserve royal heritage during political crisis, through centuries of patient concealment, to modern rediscovery and authentication, the crown of St. Edward had fulfilled its destiny as a symbol of royal continuity and the enduring power of careful preservation. The discovery stood as testament to the foresight of medieval planners, the dedication of modern investigators, and the timeless value of protecting cultural heritage for future generations. The legacy of the hidden crown extended far beyond its material value or ceremonial significance. It represented proof that even in the darkest periods of political crisis, thoughtful planning and dedication to preserving cultural heritage could succeed across centuries. Queen Isabella's conspiracy had not only saved England's most sacred crown, but had also provided a powerful example of successful long-term cultural preservation that would inspire similar efforts for generations to come.